Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've always loved hiking alone. There's a certain peace in it, a quiet that settles into your bones, like the woods themselves are breathing with you. Out there, you're just a speck in something bigger, something older. But after what happened last summer, I don't think I'll ever go back. It was late July when I decided to explore a new trail in the dense forests of Oregon. I had done my research, mapped out the route, packed my gear, everything a smart hiker should do. But looking back, I think I was doomed the second I stepped off the main path. It started as a whisper. At first, I thought it was just the wind through the trees. A soft, almost musical sound, just at the edge of hearing. But the deeper I walked, the clearer it became. Come closer. I stopped dead in my tracks. My heart kicked against my ribs. The voice was soft, almost kind, but it had no direction. It was everywhere at once, like the trees themselves were speaking. I turned, scanning the woods behind me. Nothing, just the dense thicket of trees, their trunks dark with shadow. Then, the whisper came again. This way. A chill ran through me, and this time, I swore it was closer, right behind me. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. Still nothing. Every rational part of my brain told me to turn back. But I didn't. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something deeper, something I don't want to name. Either way, I kept walking. The whispers guided me, their words slipping between the trees like smoke. I wasn't even thinking about where I was going anymore. I just walked deeper and deeper into the forest. The trail beneath my boots became unfamiliar, darker, the air heavier. Then I noticed my phone battery. I had started with a full charge. Now, it was at 20%, then 15, then 10. I hadn't been using it. I checked my GPS. Nothing. No signal. No map. No coordinates. It was as if I had stepped off the edge of the world. And that's when I saw them. Silhouettes standing between the trees, barely visible in the fading light. They weren't moving, just watching. I froze. My skin crawled with something primal, something I hadn't felt since I was a child afraid of the dark. My breathing was too loud, my heartbeat slamming against my chest. The whispers had stopped. The silence was worse. It was thick, pressing in on my ears, making them ring. I could hear my own pulse, my own breath, but nothing else. Not even the rustling of leaves. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Then, one of them stepped forward. It didn't move like a person. It glided, its limbs too long, its steps too smooth. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't listen. I was frozen, locked in place like prey caught in a predator's gaze. The thing stopped just at the edge of the light, its features still hidden in shadow. But I could feel it looking at me, and then it smiled. I don't know how I knew that. I never saw its face, but I felt it smile. That was enough to break me. I turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, my boots slipping on moss-covered roots. Branches whipped against my face, tore my jacket, but I didn't care. I just ran. The whispers returned, but they weren't words anymore. They were laughter, low, echoing, curling around me like fingers reaching for my throat. I don't know how long I ran, only that at some point, the trees thinned, and I stumbled onto a dirt road. My knees buckled, and I hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. That's when I saw the headlights. An old pickup truck rattled to a stop, and an older couple rushed out. The man knelt beside me, his brow furrowed with concern. "Jesus, son, what the hell happened to you?" I turned, looking back at the trees. But they were just trees. No figures, no whispers, just the deep, endless forest stretching back into the night. I told him everything, my voice shaking. When I finished, the woman made the sign of the cross. The man just sighed. "You're lucky," he said. "People go missing out there all the time." He shook his head, his voice dropping lower. "And they're never found." I didn't argue. I just climbed into the truck, my hand still trembling. I don't hike alone anymore. And I never, ever follow whispers in the woods. Story 2. I never liked the mountains much. Something about them always made me feel small. Not just physically, spiritually, maybe like the trees have been here longer than anything else. Watching, waiting. Alex was the one who suggested the trip. He'd found a spot deep in the Appalachian wilderness, a place he swore was untouched, pristine, the real deal. Jason and I went along because, well, why not? A weekend away from the city sounded good. Beer, fire, stars. And for a while, it was perfect. The first night, we set up camp near a small, still lake. The water so black it looked like a hole in the world. We built a fire, grilled some food, swapped dumb stories. The kind of night that makes you think, man, I should do this more often. The fog came the next evening. It rolled in fast, sliding over the lake and creeping up through the trees like something alive. 1 minute, we were watching the sky darken. The next, we couldn't see 5 feet in front of us. Jason, always the jokester, laughed. "Damn, it's like a horror movie." But Alex and I, we didn't laugh. The silence felt heavier in the fog, the kind that makes your ears ring. The fire crackled, but the sound felt distant, muffled. Something was off. Then the voice came. "Guys, over here." Jason jumped. The thing was, Jason hadn't spoken. He was sitting right next to me, frozen, his beer halfway to his lips. His eyes flicked toward me. "That wasn't me," he whispered. The voice had come from the trees. I grabbed my flashlight, my pulse hammering in my throat, and shined it toward sound. Nothing but gray mist and the skeletal outlines of trees. But my gut was screaming. Then again, "Help me." I stiffened. The voice was mine. "No, no way." Alex was breathing hard. Jason muttered something under his breath, something about getting out of here. I gripped my knife, the handle slick in my palm. "Who's there?" I shouted. The fog swirled, and for a split second, I saw it. Tall, too tall, arms too long, fingers like broken twigs. Its skin was stretched so tight over its bones that it looked like it had been shrink-wrapped. And its head, God, its head was tilted too far to one side, like the neck had snapped, but it never got the message. It had no eyes, just blank, smooth skin where they should have been. The moment my flashlight beam touched it, it snapped backward, like a marionette with its strings cut, vanishing into the mist. We ran. I don't even remember grabbing my bag, but somehow we were in the truck, tires kicking up dirt, the fog swallowing our campsite behind us. No one spoke. No one dared to look back. We didn't stop until we hit the highway, the mountains shrinking in the rear view. The fog didn't follow. None of us talk about it much. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone and it's quiet, I swear I could still hear it. My own voice, calling from the trees. Story 3. I was on the road for 10 hours straight when I decided to pull over. Somewhere in the backwoods of Montana, where the trees swallowed the sky and the air smelled like damp earth and pine. I wasn't looking for anything special, just a place to rest for the night. I found it by accident, an old campsite off a dirt road, unmarked, forgotten. It felt isolated, perfect. There was no sign of other campers, no fire pits, no beer cans, no footprints in the dirt, just an opening in the trees, like something had chewed out a perfect little hollow just for me. I parked my car, stretched my legs, and set up my tent. As the sun sank below the horizon, the world turned quiet. That eerie, too still quiet that only the deep woods can pull off. I shrugged it off. I wasn't a city guy, but I wasn't a survivalist either. Just a man on the road, looking for some shut-eye. I wish I'd kept driving. The sound woke me up first. A soft shuffling like someone, or something, moving just outside my tent. I wasn't groggy. I went from dead asleep to ice-cold awake in seconds. My heart hammering, ears straining against the thick silence. I grabbed my flashlight and clicked it on. The tent glowed dimly around me, a thin fabric cocoon against whatever was out there. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and unzipped the flap. Nothing, just the woods, dark and endless. My car sat a few feet away, the way I'd left it. My backpack leaned against a log. The fire pit, still full of dead ashes. But something was off. It took me a moment to realize what. The trees. They weren't the same. I don't mean I was turned around. I mean there were different trees. The straight, healthy pines I'd parked next were gone, replaced by twisted, blackened husks, charred and skeletal, like they'd been struck by lightning, like they'd been burned a long, long time ago. I swallowed hard. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I'd been too tired when I set up camp to notice. Then I turned to my car. It wasn't there. I stood frozen, flashlight shaking in my grip. No, that was impossible. I'd parked it right there, just a few feet from my tent. I hadn't moved it. There were no tire tracks, no disturbed dirt, no sign that a car had ever been there at all. Panic started creeping in, cold and electric. I took a shaky step forward, and that's when I saw them. Handprints. Hundreds of them. They covered my tent, my cooler, the ground. Small, smudged prints pressed into the dirt like something had been crawling around me while I slept. Too many to count. Too many to be human. And far, far too small. A sharp breath caught in my throat. I stepped back, my mind racing. I had to get out of there. I didn't know what the hell was happening, but I knew I wasn't safe. I grabbed my backpack, my knife, and bolted. The woods closed in around me as I ran. The trees were too close together, their blackened limbs clawing at the sky like twisted fingers. The air was thick and wrong, heavy with the smell of rot. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. 5 minutes. 10. 15. And then I saw it. My tent. I stopped so fast I nearly fell forward. No, that wasn't possible. I had been running in a straight line. I hadn't turned. I hadn't doubled back. But there it was. My tent. My cooler. My campsite. Exactly as I'd left it. The handprints were still there. My breath came fast, ragged, I turned and ran again, my legs screaming, my vision blurring with panic. The ground was uneven, the roots thick and gnarled, trying to trip me up, and then cutting through the trees. Laughter, high-pitched, childlike, but wrong. It came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the trees, too loud, too close. I could hear them moving now, the rustling of feet, small, quick steps, dozens of them, maybe more. I squeezed my knife, so hard my knuckles cracked. Stay the hell away from me. I shouted into the dark. My voice came back to me, hollow and weak. And the laughter stopped. Silence. Heavy. Pressing. Then, a whisper, so close I felt it against my ear. Stay. I ran. I don't remember how long. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in my tent, the sun cutting through the trees. Everything looked normal. My car was parked right where I left it. The trees were tall and green, not blackened or dead. The air smelled like pine and earth again, fresh and crisp. For a split second, I almost convinced myself it had been a dream, a bad, twisted nightmare. And then I saw the handprints, still there, smudged into the fabric of my tent, the dirt beneath my feet. Unmistakable. I tore down my campsite in record time, throwing my gear into my car and peeling out of there without looking back. I don't know what would have happened if I had stayed another night. I don't want to know. I never found that campsite on any map, and I never went back.